At what point does brutal honesty stop being honesty and start becoming self-sabotage? Corey Holcomb built a career on saying what other comedians wouldn't dare to say. No filter, no apologies, no corporate polish. And for a long time, that worked. But over the last few months, something has shifted. The 5150 show doesn't feel like a sharp, fearless commentary show anymore. It feels reactive, it feels ego-driven, and honestly, it feels unstable. Now, before anyone says I'm clout chasing, let's get this out of the way. I used to be a fan. I respected Corey's stand-up. I respected his ability to control a room. And I respected that he didn't bend to industry pressure. Which is exactly why this is disappointing. So, in today's breakdown, we're going to talk about the Anton Daniels incident, the pattern of escalation, the jokes about children, the Joe Budden situation, and the copyright threats. And also the bigger pattern forming around 5150. So this isn't a rant, this isn't a breakdown, but let's start from the beginning. Corey Holcomb built his brand on three things: masculine dominance energy, anti-industry truth-telling, and ruthless humor. He wasn't trying to be mainstream, he wasn't trying to be safe, and he wasn't trying to be polished, and that was fine. Comedy doesn't have to be clean to be effective. In fact, some of the greatest comedians ever were controversial. But there's a key difference between controlled controversy and compulsive controversy. Old Corey felt controlled. New Corey feels reactive. There's more defensiveness, more personal attacks, more escalation. And when you host a podcast, especially one built on confrontation, you have to understand something. The internet keeps receipts forever. The 5150 show has become less about commentary and more about combat. And that shift really matters.
Reason you go after black males or black people quicker than you will go after white males. What are white males responsible for in this country as the downfall of it? I ain't heard you talk about white men since you've been up here.
You ain't been listening. You talking loud.
And you still talking around. What did the Caucasian male do to America to bring it down?
I'm not getting into that.
Now let's talk about the Anton Daniels situation. Anton came onto the 5150 show, and it starts as a debate. The debate turns into tension, and then the tension turns into an ego competition. I mean, really happens. But here's where things change. When Anton directly challenged him, Corey didn't de-escalate, he didn't pivot the conversation, he didn't assert control as the host. Instead, the energy shifted into posture.
No, let me tell you something, homie. I don't suck dick.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do. So fix
that. You're doing it right now.
I don't suck dick, homie.
You doing it right now.
Homie, believe me when I tell you. I don't do that. I don't do that.
Listen.
So don't come at me with no sucking.
I'm going to give you the same energy you give me.
Let's switch seats. Let's switch seats. I'm with it. Homie, I don't do no sucking shit.
Now, here's the part that really matters. After the confrontation, instead of letting it die, Corey escalated. The merchandise situation crossed a line.
This is dedicated to you, Lane.
Mocking Anton, that's petty. Putting his wife and daughter in it is reckless. Using racially charged imagery is dangerous. You can call it a joke, but comedy has to have intent. And when uninvolved family members are dragged into the internet beef, especially people not active online, that stops being entertainment. That becomes collateral damage. And even if part of what was said about the emotional effect on his daughter is true, that's not internet drama, that's real world consequences. This was the first moment where I stopped seeing confidence. I started seeing ego injury. Because when someone is secure, they don't need revenge merch, they just move on. Here's something people are afraid to say. Corey doesn't debate, he dominates. There's a difference. Debate is an exchange. Domination is intimidation. And watch the pattern on 5150. Interrupting guests, publicly embarrassing co-hosts, turning disagreement into ridicule. escalating personal attacks. Now that can be entertaining in small doses, but when it becomes a primary tool, it creates a hostile environment. And eventually people either A, walk on eggshells, B, leave, or C, retaliate. We've seen all three. If every disagreement becomes warfare, you're not the fearless truth teller, you're unstable. And audiences can feel that shift. Now we have to address the uncomfortable part. Corey has always pushed boundaries, but pushing boundaries requires precision. When comedians tackle taboo topics, they structure the joke carefully. They create absurdity, they signal exaggeration, they frame it clearly as satire. But when certain themes come up repeatedly, especially involving children, people are going to question it. Not because they're sensitive, but because repetition signals fixation. One wild joke is okay. 10 variations of similar commentary, that's a pattern.
Fine, I'm saying in America, you are limited to think that you gotta wait for a hoe to be 18. No.
Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think with fly.
Yeah, she has a documentary.
Kid pussy, that's the best put. Well, I'm saying. This past weekend, I saw this little girl. She had a Welch's grape juice bottle in her mouth, and she was about 5. She had the whole bottle, as far as it'll go, just sucking on it, walking with her mouth. Somebody said, "Get that out her mouth." When they took it out her mouth, that baby said, You know when she stopped crying? When a man picked her up and put her in her lap and started bouncing with her. Then she stopped crying and was looking like this. I say, that's a
And here's the issue with hiding behind it's just jokes. If the only defense is you don't get the humor, that's weak. Because strong comedy doesn't require a disclaimer. It lands or it doesn't. When a significant portion of your audience feels uncomfortable rather than shocked and laughing, that's not censorship, it's feedback. And dismissing all feedback as weakness is how creators isolate themselves. Now let's talk about Joe Budden. Now look, I'm not a Joe Budden defender, but criticism is criticism. The comedy club situation where Corey put his hands on a woman is serious. You can't brand yourself as the alpha truth teller and then react physically to words. That contradiction matters. Joe and his crew criticize the situation, and Corey responds predictably. Escalation, threat energy, combativeness. Now here's the pattern all over again. Criticism to ego bruise to retaliation.
Oh yeah, it was this other dude talking crazy about me. I couldn't help it. Some of these guys, I just gotta say something.
No.
Do you know who I'm talking about? Fruit Booty Buttons? Fruit Booty Buttons is a serial woman beater. Was talking about how he said. They said the girl said
That's not leadership, it's insecurity. Strong men don't react physically to verbal critique, and strong entertainers don't threaten everyone who disagrees with them. Now, this is where things get dangerous. When Corey implied that creators covering him would be his money, that raised alarms.
all of these videos that are being put out there about me, that's gonna be my money. You wanna make me famous? Unfortunately, you're doing evil things and saying lies about me. That's okay. I say, God, this how you want me to get the bag?
That sounds like copyright strike strategies. Let's be clear. Fair use protects transformative commentary. If someone is reacting, analyzing, critiquing any form of media, it's protected. We've seen other creators attempt to weaponize copyright, and it failed.
Fresh and Fit decided to hit us with dozens of copyright claims. We saw this was probably going to end up coming, and honestly, Not upset about it at all. We cover Jubilee all the time. They're far larger than you guys, far larger than us. We cover a bunch of large YouTubers, and they do not do what you are describing. People keep bringing up Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels strikes down people who use his entire stream. Fair use, I think, is very confusing to people because they don't really understand it. In the commentary community, for example, it is considered fair use to use other people's work, provided that you meet a certain set of criteria. It's not always black and white, but let me explain. If you grab a clip and then add commentary surrounding it, the work becomes transformative. It is not a substitute for said product because of the fact that you are creating something unique through your commentary and through your own individual brand. That is what fair use is.
YouTube will terminate channels for abuse. And if Corey thinks striking critics will silence the conversation, that's panic thinking. And panic thinking destroys channels faster than critics ever could. The moment you try to silence critique instead of addressing it, you've already lost the argument. Now here's the bigger issue. Corey built his identity around dominance, but dominance requires control. And lately, there's been no control. When every disagreement becomes war, when every critique becomes an enemy, when every joke becomes darker for shock value, that's not strength. That's someone spiraling under their own brand. There's a difference between being feared and being respected. Right now, 5150 feels less respected and more volatile, and volatility doesn't build legacy, it burns it. Corey built 5150 on accountability culture, holding women accountable, holding men accountable, holding the industry accountable. So here's the real question: who holds him accountable? Because the moment you position yourself as the arbiter of truth, you inherit the responsibility to self-reflect. And that's what I'm not seeing. If I'm wrong, time will show it. But if this pattern continues, it won't be YouTube critics that end 5150. It'll be Corey's inability to regulate his ego in a public space. And that's the real downfall. Now look, I'm not making this video out of hate. I'm making it because I've watched the decline happen in real time. If you disagree, that's fine. If you think it's all jokes, that's your right. But patterns don't lie. And eventually, reality catches up with everyone. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.